ceasefire deal done. And a historic day in Paris as Israel takes home its 7th medal in the Olympics so far. Welcome to The Rundown. I'm Nicole Zedek, live in Tel Aviv. It's day 309 of Israel at war, and a deadly incident in Gaza is making headlines around the world. The Israeli Defense Forces struck a Hamas command center embedded in a school in Gaza City, where Palestinian civilians were also said to be sheltering. The IDF said at least 19 terror operatives, including senior commanders, were at the Al-Tabain school when it was struck. But the Hamas-run civil defense agency is claiming a mass casualty incident with upwards of 90 people killed in the airstrike. Hamas claims there were no operatives inside the school and instead claimed the strike hit a group of people performing dawn prayers. The IDF says Hamas's claimed death toll is inaccurate and that troops carried out steps to mitigate harms to civilians, including using aerial surveillance, 3 precise munitions, and made sure no women or children were nearby when they carried out the attack. Well, for more on this top story, I want to introduce my panel in studio. I'm joined by Avi Posner, former Israeli ambassador to France and Italy, as well as retired Colonel Dr. Jacques Neria, the former deputy head of assessment for Israeli military intelligence and former foreign policy advisor to Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me this evening.
Thank you.
This story right now, it is certainly making headlines around the world. Many of the international agencies are also being sure to run with the Hamas claimed Gaza Health Ministry numbers that upwards of 90 people were killed in this strike. Now, hours after, as we typically see with Israel, they are stating now 19 operatives were inside this school that Hamas was using as a command center. But Jacques, when we're looking at an operation like this, what type of steps does Israel take to try and mitigate these civilian casualties?
Well, the use of special ammunition is just an indicative of the kind of information Israel had. If you look at the pictures very closely and you see that the second floor has been hit, and this is definitely the target of 3 very precise bombs that were sent by, I mean, not very heavy. It's about 16 kilograms each. So there were precise bombs that were sent at a precise location. And the fact is that, as you said earlier, there were no women there, no children there. This was a gathering of chief of Hamas over there, discussing the strategy, how to cope with the fact that Israel is absent in this area, so that they were just reorganizing. So this is the information Israel has. As soon as it gets information that there is a gathering, that there is Hamas is trying to revive itself, then it becomes a target. And this is a definitely precise target. We have to be very careful about the numbers. I mean, if you remember a few months ago, there was this strike, this parking around the Al-Mamadani hospital, and immediately, not even less than 5 minutes later, the Hamas said that there were 500 people killed there, and then it appeared that this was a misfire of Hamas itself, of Islamic Jihad, and it was, in fact, they inflicted themselves 50 casualties. We have to be very careful with those numbers. I mean, the UN is very careful with the number. It has cut to less than 50% the total number of casualties in Gaza, and it claims that there are 10,000 names that are missing there. So I think that we have to, I know that there's a great fuss about it now in the world. Everybody will love to hit Israel as always, but we have to stick to our principles, and we are on the right path.
Well, Avi, how do we work, or how does Israel work to combat what some of this international media is saying? We're hearing public outcry, which we'll get to what some of these international leaders have said, but just as a whole, the fact that Israel has taken its due diligence to investigate exactly how many people they said were killed in these attacks, but it's hours after it's already made international headlines.
Now we have to, I think we have to be more rapid in our reaction. I'm very pleased that the IDF spokesman now released the names and pictures of the terrorist killed, but that should have been hours ago. Because I followed the world over the reaction there are very strong reactions because the first information came from the Hamas. The moment the Hamas said, and I don't believe a minute that it is true, that over 90 people have been killed. I don't believe it. The fact that
Israel says that because of the munitions that they used, it's likely impossible that
absolutely, absolutely, and that had to be explained immediately. Mm-hmm. You understand? Here, speed is of the essence when you struggle on the international scene. I myself did my unofficial job from this morning, explaining why Hamas always hides behind human shields, civilian shields, how Israel targets only terrorists and not civilian population. But, you know, the official information should have come earlier in order to explain we are only after Hamas, not against Palestinians. We use precise ammunition. We try to avoid civilian killing, and we hit Hamas when we can hit Hamas.
Let's talk a little bit more about some of this vocal outcry that we're seeing really across the international spectrum. The White House says they are deeply concerned about the civilian casualties in the Gaza Strip. The United Nations Special Reporter on the rights situation in Palestinian territories, Francesca Albanese, who has a history of anti-Semitic and anti-Israel statements, she posted on social media saying, quote, Israel is genociding the Palestinians one neighborhood at a time, one hospital at a time, one school at a time, one refugee camp at a time, and one safe zone at a time. Meanwhile, EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell also took to social media to express his, quote, horror at the deadly Israeli strike. Lebanon's foreign ministry says the strike shows Israel's intention to, quote, extend the war, which was similar to what the Egyptian foreign ministry had to say, stating the, quote, deliberate killing of unarmed Palestinians shows Israel's lack of a political will to end the war in Gaza. Iran's foreign ministry went one step further, even calling for broad action by Muslim countries against Israel and support for the, quote, Palestinian resistance. So these are some of the international reactions we are seeing coming in from around the world. So this does go into exactly what you were stating, Avi, about the lack of steps for Israel to get on top of this. So now we are seeing such a quick response from many of these international entities.
Well, Nicole, you have to remember, I mean, the Palestinians are taken for granted. I mean, they are the underdog in this fight with Israel, and this is a problem. I quite agree with Avi saying that we have to be more rapid in responding. The problem is, do you respond rapidly, or do you rely first on checking the information? Because you have to be sure that those people that you have targeted are killed, and that these were the people that were there. I mean, we heard from Palestinian reporters that there were, bags of people who weighed 70 kilos. 70 kilos, it's not a kid. It's not a kid. It's definitely not a kid. So, I mean, these are the things that we should be very aware of. The problem is that we are in a position where of being criticized because of our position, because of declaration of certain ministers in our government, and because of the fact that we are a strong army killing so-called a weak militia. I mean, and we forget, the word forgets that we are talking about a terrorist organization recognized as such by most of the world.
Gentlemen, with everything that's happening is in the Gaza Strip right now, we have to remember that we are also facing another front to the north. It was not long ago that sirens were blaring throughout northern Israel this evening as well, when a barrage of 10 rockets fired from Lebanon targeted communities in the western Galilee. All of the rockets struck open areas, according to the IDF, and some sparked fires in the area as well. Now, drone sirens also sounded as far as the city of Magalar, about 20 kilometers away from the Lebanon border. No one was injured in these attacks, and the IDF troops shelled the launch sites with artillery. Now, this all ties in, once again, to the looming threat that Israel is still facing from Iran. Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps Chief Ismail Qaani said in a letter to the new Hamas leader, Yahya Sinwar, that Tehran will avenge the killing of his predecessor, Ismail Haniyeh, who was killed in the Iranian capital more than a week ago. However, new reports state the new Iranian president, Masoud Pezeshkian, is fighting hardliners to tone down the scale of Tehran's attack. I-24 News' Nasli Nassar and Joe Brown have more.
Internal disagreements inside the Iranian regime as new Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian is urging Ayatollah Khamenei to avoid attacking Israel. As stated in a report from the Daily Telegraph, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps is planning a unified attack with the rest of the Iranian proxy groups in the region. A Revolutionary Guard official said that nobody in the organisation loyal to Khamenei is paying any attention to Pezeshkian's efforts to de-escalate the situation. On the other hand, a report said that Tehran might resort to a strategy of targeting specific figures responsible for the assassination of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran instead of a larger-scale attack. Iranian Revolutionary Guard's Quds Force chief Ismail Khani informed new Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar that Tehran will avenge the killing of his predecessor Ismail Haniyeh, an assassination Iran blames on Israel. The retaliation will be harsher than Iran's April attack on Israel, Khani said. The IRGC said that its navy has new cruise missiles equipped with highly explosive warheads that are undetectable.
Today, the accuracy of weapons in the Navy, the speed of operations of systems and vessels, intelligence, mobility, and dexterity are certainly considered among our naval power.
According to the U.S. Office of the Director of National Intelligence, Iran is armed with the largest number of ballistic missiles in the region.
So, Avi, as more days go by, Israel, of course, is still on high alert, and this is part of the response in itself. We heard from Hezbollah leader Nasrallah stating that the anxiety that he's causing in the Israeli public is all part of the anticipated response as well. But is there a possibility that some of these diplomatic actions might actually be tempering Iran's possible response?
By the way, Nicole, speaking about anxiety, I think the anxiety in Beirut is not less than in Tel Aviv.
Maybe even more.
This is what I'm hinting at. So this punishment that Nasrallah said is first of all affecting him and not us. I think we are very much ready with our allies. You know, the United States has deployed here 2 aircraft carriers with accompanying vessel, has sent a squadron of F-22 fighters to the region. I mean, Israel is ready. And the fact is that for the time being, there has not been an attack. And why is there? I think that what you just reported, the internal discussion within Iran, and certainly also in Lebanon, because there is a lot of pressure on Nasrallah from the other Lebanese factions, the Christian, the Druze, the Sunnit, not to act in a way that will widen the war. This is also in Iran. You have the discussion between the so-called moderate or pragmatic, let's say like the new president, and the Revolutionary Guard. They want to go all out. And this is the reason why so far there has been nothing. But we should not put down our alert. We should be every minute and every second on alert, because it is possible that they try to get us asleep and then to hit. And I believe, I trust, this is not the 7th of October. I think this time we are ready, and we are ready 24 hours 7. We are ready for an attack against us, and I am also sure that we know already the kind of response which is going to be made to an attack.
What type of response might we enact? Because Avi brings up a great question, Jacques. Not only the retaliation we're expecting from Iran, but then how Israel then might counter-retaliate against that. So when we're talking about these threats, what exactly might their response look like at this time?
Well, it all depends on the kind of attack that Israel will borrow and will bear. The problem is the following, that on the ground you don't see any preparations. Unlike the 14th of April, where you saw the Iranians were preparing themselves, preparing their missiles. You have to fuel them. You have to put them in position. You have to coordinate with several, between the ballistic missiles and the drones and the cruise missiles. Here, you don't see that at all for the time being, which means that the more you get further from the incident, the more the Iranians are thinking of a different sort of strike.
Could this be a cyber attack? Could this be
this retaliation might be carried outside the borders of Iran. Let's say if they are looking at the fact that we have hit the Iranian consulate in Damascus, they might hit an embassy. I mean, they did that in the past in Argentina twice. And they did that in Paris against another adversary. So this is one possibility. And the second thing is that you have to put apart, differentiate totally between the Iranian response and Hezbollah. Hezbollah behaves almost as a semi-autonomous, almost independent organization. It doesn't receive the directives from Iran or instructions. It receives advices, and it follows the advices or not follow the advices. So, but what we can see right now is how Hezbollah is applying the speech of Hassan Nasrallah. Hassan Nasrallah said, we are entering a new era. This is what he said. This is a new era where on the one hand, we will continue our war of attrition against Israel and expand it. And on the second hand, we will respond concerning the Fuad Shukr, the assassination. And if you look at that, you see already that there's a widening of the attrition war. As you said earlier, Rosh Pina, all those areas deep inside Israel have been hit or have been threatened by Hezbollah. Meaning, I mean, we have seen Akko, we have seen Nahariya, and we've seen the other places in the north, in the northern part of Israel. And this is the kind of game that Hezbollah wants to play with us. Whereas he says that concerning the Fuad Shukr, the revenge will be such that you will remember, I mean, it will hurt you. And if this is going to hurt us, it means that we will be in a position where we'll have to respond very, not only by booms over Beirut, but by hitting targets, real targets in the Dahya and other places, and make Hezbollah understand that we are not the kind of weak people that he thinks we are.
And as Israel does wait for Hezbollah's response from Iran's response, Iran's mission to the United Nations, they say it hopes Tehran's response won't impact a potential ceasefire deal in Gaza, adding that any agreement accepted by Hamas will also be recognized by Iran. The question asked was if Iran would delay its highly anticipated attack until after ceasefire and hostage release talks are set to resume on August 15th. That's this Thursday. The United States, Egypt, and Qatar have a renewed push to finalize a deal on this date. U.S. officials believe the latest proposal is the closest the parties have been to an agreement in months, but there's still some negotiations they're hoping to iron out on Thursday. However, far-right Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich has voiced his opposition to resuming these talks, saying it's not the time to release the, quote, murderers. Those are Palestinian security prisoners who would be released in exchange for Israeli hostages, also calling the deal a dangerous trap. The Biden administration said Smotrich should be ashamed for his comments, with White House National Security spokesman John Kirby accusing him of jeopardizing a deal and misleading the Israeli public. Well, speaking of the Israeli public, there are thousands taking to the streets of Tel Aviv once again in the weekly Saturday protests at Hostage Square and Kaplan Street, demanding for a hostage release deal now. That's exactly where we find our correspondent, Balir Sladin. Balir, you're at one of these anti-government protests demanding for a hostage release deal. So just tell me some of what you're hearing and seeing on the streets.
Yes, let's quickly take a look at what's happening here. Thousands of people, as you see, in front of the headquarters, the IDF headquarters here in central Tel Aviv in Kaplan Street, and also very close to the Hostages Square. As we see, all of these people are calling for a ceasefire deal that brings back the hostages, but they are also calling for an early election. We're talking about the weekly protests for the organizations that are against the government that has been or have been protesting also before October 7th, calling for the early elections and the change in the government, the resignation of Benjamin Netanyahu, as we see from all of the signs that the people here are holding. Now, the families of the hostages just a couple of hours ago we're here where I'm standing, and they have said clearly that the Israeli government should close the deal as soon as possible, because if it's not now, then what we are going to get, the families, only bodies of the hostages, if any of these bodies is returned, which means that maybe we will never get to a deal with Hamas, if not soon enough. Also, they are saying that Netanyahu is the one that's jeopardizing the deal. That's the narrative here. Of course, that Netanyahu should sign the deal as soon as possible and should go for that framework that President Biden presented a couple of months ago on last May. But the sources in Israel are saying today and yesterday that we should lower the expectations regarding the upcoming negotiations on August 15th, because of the fact that the disagreements are still there regarding Philadelphia corridor, regarding the return of the armed militias or armed militants, to the north of the Gaza Strip, and of course that specific transition between the first phase, the humanitarian phase, and the second phase. Israel wants to keep the option to resume fighting after the first phase, but Hamas says that the negotiations will continue forever, and Israel cannot actually resume the fighting after the first phase if there has been no agreement regarding the terms of the second phase of the deal.
Quite a vocal demonstration you're right in the middle of. Balir Sladin, thanks so much for bringing us the latest from the ground. Well, also taking place tonight is a memorial in Kibbutz Nir Oz. That's the community where 1 in 4 people were murdered or kidnapped on October 7th. I'm joined now by Efrat Mashikawa, the niece of Margalit and Gadi Moses, who were kidnapped by Hamas from Nir Oz. Margalit was released as part of the deal in November, but 80-year-old Gadi is still captive in Gaza, where he has been held for 309 days now. Efrat, he's joining us from that ceremony in Nir Oz. Efrat, thank you so much for being with us this evening.
Yeah.
Will you begin by telling us about some of the ceremony and the memorial that you're at in Nir Oz right now? What exactly is taking place?
Yeah, we're actually at the temporary housing of Kibbutz Nir Oz in Kiryat Gat, because the kibbutz is absolutely destroyed, burned, and nobody can actually go back there. So the people of Nir Oz had to find temporary living, and they are now in the city of Kiryat Gat. This memorial or gathering is happening every weekend, and I'm here to bring my parents, 85 and 86 years old. In the background now, you can hear the names of all the 115 people who were kidnapped. We used to read the names every Saturday, not to forget anyone. And we repeat it and we repeat it and we shall repeat it until everyone is back.
Well, and Efrat, that's a beautiful message you continue to share every weekend. Your aunt was released as part of one of the deals in November, but your uncle, Gadi, he's still captive. And so right now, with the potential for a ceasefire deal, what are your feelings? Do you feel like there is hope that August 15th something could happen?
Well, we are hoping. Gadi is strong as we know him. He is a wonderful man, and we are fighting for him. Gadi is 80 years old. He is a renowned agronomist to help saving lives all over the world, from Papua New Guinea to Egypt to North America. And we hope that his life will be saved as well. We are here, not only here, I have been in Begin and Tel Aviv, and about 2 hours ago, we have given our declaration for the media, and then came back down to the south to take my parents. It's very important for them to be out here. We are here with my aunt, Margalit Moses, and all the cousins and friends. And about the upcoming deal, we hope that the person who is actually abandoning the people and his citizens will know that this is his chance to write a different chapter to the book. We have gathered essays to create a book of the dark legacy of Benjamin Netanyahu. He has an empty chapter at the end and a chance to change the ending of this terrible story of October 7th. We hope that he will give the mandate to the negotiators who are going to August 15th, and we hope that they will seal the deal. This is really the very last moment. We hope they seal the deal.
And we have seen a deal work before months ago now. As I mentioned, that's when your aunt Margalit was released. You say she's there at that rally tonight. How has she been in the months since her release, especially since Gadi is still captive in Gaza and she knows exactly what he is going through?
She and my parents are sitting always at the front row, and they're very excited and sad to be here. We really hope to end that very, very quickly. Margalit is an amazing woman. She had a long way to go. She is still recovering, but she is a strong lady. We hope Gadi will be the same. We're waiting for him and for all the others. The murdered has to come back for a respectful burial, and all the living for starting back their lives.
We certainly hope that's the case. Efrat Mashikowa, thank you so much for joining us from that memorial in Nir Oz.
And thank you very much for keeping us in the news. Please Google Dark Legacy, or in Hebrew, Mar Hafkara. We will appreciate if you take part of that as well.
Thank you so much,
Efrat. So much for covering.
Thank you. We are going out for a quick break, but when we come back, we'll continue to discuss all of this with our guests in studio. Stay with us.
This broadcast is brought to you by Israel Bonds, the most direct and impactful way to support Israel. Invest now at israelbonds.com. This broadcast is brought to you by Israel Bonds, the most direct and impactful way to support Israel. Invest now at israelbonds.com.
Welcome back to the rundown. Turning to U.S. news now. A group of pro-Palestinian protesters caught the attention of Vice President Kamala Harris during her rally in Arizona on Friday. She took a moment to directly address the protesters, saying she respects their voices and also calls for a ceasefire in Gaza. Take a listen to what she said at the rally.
We're here to fight for our democracy. Which includes respecting the voices that I think that we are hearing from. And let me just say this on topic of what I think I'm hearing over there. Let me just speak to that for a moment, and then I'm going to get back to the business at hand. So let me say, I have been clear. Now is the time to get a ceasefire deal and get the hostage deal done. Now is the time. And the president and I are working around the clock every day to get that ceasefire deal done and bring the hostages home.
For more on this news coming out of the United States, I'm joined by Joel Rubin, a Democratic strategist and former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State in the Obama administration. Joel, thanks so much for joining us this evening.
It's great to be with you, Nicole.
Now, we're hearing right now it is crunch time for a deal. That is something that we heard from Vice President Kamala Harris. The U.S., along with the other key mediators, they're trying to push for this August 15th deadline. But I'm curious exactly what this means. If Harris and Biden continue to work on this, the reason they're pushing for it, what exactly would it entail for not only Biden's legacy, but then Harris as well going into her presidential candidacy?
Yeah, I mean, the ceasefire that the president has been talking about for some time and that our negotiators have been working with our allies in Qatar and Egypt on, and these discussions have been ongoing now for months. This is something that needs to be a priority. The hostages need to come home, and this will be the vehicle for that. And so we saw just a couple of days ago a statement coming out from the president and Qatar and Egypt as well to hold a summit inviting Israel and Hamas. And the Israeli government said, and Bibi Netanyahu said he would send a delegation. So that's a good sign. There really needs to be a way to get the hostages home, and this is the best way to do it.
Meanwhile, Joel, also the United States, they're clearly very focused on protecting Israel, the Middle East region. But what about their own troops as well in the region? We've seen multiple attacks this week on U.S. troops in northeastern Syria. They were attacked by a drone. Earlier in the week, 5 Americans were injured in western Iraq. So these Iranian-backed militias, they continue to go after U.S. forces. So should the United States be having a stronger response and stronger statements towards that, their own forces in the area?
Yeah, no, you're right. Look, these cheap shots being taken by Iran and its proxies are unacceptable. Troops were shot at as well in Iraq. The Iraqi government is a partner of the United States, and the United States, the Biden team made it very clear that this is unacceptable. And concurrent to that, we have sent warships, additional warships to the region to let Iran know that it cannot and should not attack Israel in response to the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh. I think the president and his team, they're watching this very closely. They have not been shy about attacking Houthi militias and other entities that come after American troops. I think they're making the message very clear to this new Iranian government. Again, it just came in very recently that it should not provoke the United States. And I think we're seeing a strong message being sent about that. We'll see if that works. But at this stage, that's the primary mode. To let the Iranian government, this new one, understand they cannot and should not take shots at American troops and forces in the region.
Certainly seems to be one of the strategies they're playing with. Meanwhile, Joel, stay with us, but there's some other news coming out of the United States as well, because after a months-long investigation into the Israeli Netza Yehuda Battalion, which is an ultra-Orthodox unit accused of human rights violations against Palestinians in the West Bank, the unit is now off the hook, according to the United States. After reviewing new information provided by Israel, the State Department said the alleged human rights violations are, quote, effectively remediated. And U.S. State Department spokesman Matthew Miller said that means the Netza Yehuda Battalion can continue to receive U.S. funding and security assistance. So, Joel, U.S. will not be imposing sanctions on the unit, and I'm curious exactly what this says about the United States' policy towards Israel. As of right now, it would have been pretty controversial if they had moved and imposed sanctions on this battalion. So where does the U.S. stand then?
Yeah, absolutely, Nicole. And the legislation that governs this question is what's known as the Leahy Law. I worked on that when I served at the State Department, and the Leahy Law is a law that enables the U.S. government to sanction specific units that are accused of human rights violations. But there's also a process to ensure that whatever concerns there were are remediated. And this means that the concerns were remediated. There were serious concerns. The Israeli government took this unit away from the West Bank in 2022 because of these human rights violation concerns. But since that time, has fixed it. And I think that's a very positive signal that American pressure and coordination with the Israeli government to avoid human rights violations can be made and can be satisfied, and change can be made. It's important that our military, the U.S. military, and of course the Israeli military does not engage in this kind of behavior. This is what Hamas does, what Hezbollah does. They violate human rights. And so it's crucial that the IDF cleaned up its act in this case, and it clearly did. And that's a good outcome.
That certainly provides some interesting input into that. Joel Rubin, thank you for your analysis on everything that's happening with the U.S. and Israel right now.
My pleasure.
I want to come back to my guests still joining me in studio. I'm still joined by Avi Posner and retired Colonel Dr. Jacques Neria. Dr. Neria, I want to follow up on this news regarding the Netza Yehuda Battalion, as this has been a months-long investigation, and now that the United States will not be imposing sanctions on them, what exactly does this mean for the battalion going forward, and possibly how they have to watch some of their actions, especially in the West Bank?
Well, they can fire with M16s, American weapons. They can use American munition. So, I mean, they can behave like another unit of the Israeli army. So nothing has changed. But what has changed is the fact that the judicial arm of the army has been very active. And it's not only on that issue, but it's on the issue of State Iman also, concerning the incident with the Palestinian there. And I think that the more we show that we have a judiciary with strong applications and strong, intervention, the more the world would look at us as really the army with a higher morality, and the fact that we can push back all the accusations sent to us by mail and others from the ICC and others.
The fact that Israel goes forward with its due diligence and follows the court system, even if sometimes they're a little bit behind on getting in front of the international media, they will actually investigate these claims.
This is very important, to have an independent judiciary in the army, and a very strong one, because this gives us a protection against the world.
I want to turn our attention back to something else we talked with our guest Joel Rubin as well, which is ceasefire negotiations. Avi, we've been in this studio, in these chairs, talking about the many different rounds that it seems that a ceasefire deal and hostage negotiations are pushing forward. But right now, with the U.S., Egypt, Qatar pushing for this August 15th deadline, what are your thoughts on a diplomatic effort right now?
I would love to share the optimism of the United States and Egypt and Qatar about the August 15 deadline. It's in 5 days.
It's Thursday.
It's now. And it's Thursday. And I haven't seen any move on either side. And here, you of course, you can blame Netanyahu. He has his problems with Smotrich and Ben-Gvir. It's very difficult for him to go ahead, but I don't think this is the main problem. I think the main problem today is Yahya Sinwar on this particular question. And why is that? A few days he was elected as the head of the political bureau of Hamas. He was already the commander-in-chief in Gaza. So Yahya Sinwar now is number one. There's nobody else. He calls the shot.
Which some are saying he likely did for months now.
Exactly, but I want to come back to the 7th of October. Why did Yahya Sinwar start this war? I am sure he wanted to get everybody in, the Hezbollah and Iran and the Houthis and the militias. and he was not successful or successful to a point. Now we are in a situation that everybody expects or the attack of Hezbollah or of Iran, the Israeli response, maybe, I hope not, but maybe we are on the verge of the conflict that Yahya Sinwar was dreaming of, was hoping. So why should he go now into a negotiation and agree to a ceasefire, which would be in his interest in a normal situation? But now, in that kind of situation, when maybe the war might be extended, God forbid, and this is what he wanted, why should he show flexibility now?
And there are more and more reports coming out, even some Arab media reports, that it might not just be Iran postponing its attack until after August 15th. Hezbollah also postponing its attack. That way, if negotiations do fall through, they cannot say that the blame was necessarily on them.
One thing is sure, that the pressure is done mainly by the U.S. administration. It's holding, it's holding the horses of everybody. Israel has been in a way threatened by the U.S. In order to just get on this deal and sign it. As the information about the famous conversation between Biden and Israel, stop bullshitting me. And don't take the President of the United States as granted. So this is very serious threats, for Israel. And Israel has to understand that if it doesn't go with this stream, then we'll have to fight. We'll have to fight the American administration. I don't agree so much with Avi. I think that Sinwar, who is cunning and understands very well the situation, understands today that it's his interest to reach a ceasefire. If this ceasefire will in fact bring the end of the war de facto, and if this brings the end of the war de facto, he has survived. He has won the war. He is there, and he's there. He's still active. He's still alive, and he's been written in history as the biggest chief since Saladin.
And this is what Israel cannot agree with.
It comes again on the Israeli side, and the pressure is here. Will Netanyahu accept this fact? Will he accept the fact of a ceasefire that means, in fact, de facto, stopping the war? If this is so, he recognizes as a defeat. Will he be able to sustain a defeat facing Ben-Gvir, facing Smotrich, facing his own base? Facing insider politics, and this is a big question mark.
And facing himself, because he has promised total victory.
Total victory within reach.
He continues to promise total victory.
If you stop the war now, and Yahya Sinwar is still alive, and still somehow in control of Hamas in Gaza, you did not win this war. You understand? This is the dilemma. And this is why I cannot share the optimism that in 4 or 5 days you can now arrange this whole situation until Thursday. I think you would agree with me.
I agree with that. On the other hand,
I'm sorry about that. Yeah. I would love to see a ceasefire, and I would love to see our hostages back. I don't think it is realistic.
We both know French, and in French you have this expression that when the rooster will have teeth.
Yes.
So
we don't have that in English.
We don't have that in English, but this could be the fact. Since he doesn't have any teeth and he won't have any teeth in the future, I think that the probability of signing an agreement on the 15th of August are very slim.
And when we're talking about this quickly, we also talk about the Northern Front, as they promised to halt their hostilities as well, but Israel still needs to tackle the Northern Front one way or another.
I quite disagree here, because the latest from Hezbollah is he said that he doesn't want to link himself with the Southern Front. So it's an independent front. He has changed the rule of engagement with Israel. He has widened the scope of escalation. And the fact is, we are in fact in a war, not a war of attrition. We are at war with Hezbollah without declaring that we are at war. We are, and this is the situation. And the fact is that even if we get to a ceasefire on the northern border, will this bring back the 60,000 inhabitants who left their homes? Probably not. So it means that we will have to find another way to convince Hezbollah, and certainly Manu Militari would be one of the ways.
We'll certainly see exactly what happens in the coming days up until August 15th. Retired Colonel Dr. Jacques Neria, Avi Posner, thank you both for joining us
this
evening. Now, right now, with everything we've been talking about during this broadcast, some may consider this moment to be an opportune time for the world's Jews to immigrate to Israel. But others say this is precisely the time to come. And nowadays, many are doing so. But beyond the looming outside threats, there are plenty of more mundane challenges new immigrants also face. I took a look at how one private organization hopes to make it easier for them. Here's more.
I describe it like true love. When you know, you know.
For immigrants who chose to move to Israel, many of them say it was love at first sight.
Israel is a fantastic country.
As a Jew, I feel more happiest and I feel more myself here.
But the choice to move to Israel, or make Aliyah, as it's called, is not simple.
I think that immigrating to Israel is the easy part, but integrating is a challenge.
One of the main challenges for new immigrants coming here to Israel is knowing how to navigate the system, knowing what resources are available to them. And that's exactly where Belong comes in.
Belong was established really to lower the entry criteria to Israel, to lower the barriers that every Olé is actually facing when he comes to Israel.
After years of development, Belong was established this March as a way to not only help new immigrants, or Olim, coming to Israel, but also those already here and struggling.
Once you get here, you need someone to guide you, someone to help you through the first step, to help you with all the challenges that are here, whether it's the cost of living, whether it's the language barrier, whether it's the bureaucracy.
Unfortunately, a lot of Olim who do make Aliyah, they end up going back to their home countries. And this is because there isn't really that much help when it comes to really guiding you through the bureaucracy, through bills. And that's what we're here for. We're really here to help you come to Israel and help you stay and help you find your sense of belonging.
There wasn't Belong when I came here. There wasn't the information that I needed when I came here.
It made Yosef's journey in 2021 much more difficult.
I gave my things to the Jewish agency, and 7 months later they lost it. And I phoned them and I was like, what's happening? And they said, oh yeah, it fell down behind the back of a desk. So that was very stressful for me. It was very limbo. I was in limbo. There was no one I could lean on for assistance.
What makes Belong different from other organizations helping immigrants in Israel is it's private and can therefore partner with businesses in the area to offer more benefits to Olim.
The main difference is, first of all, that yes, we're private. We're a private company and we're looking for partners. We want to have more partners in Israel that will join our network of support for the new Olim.
Helping immigrants feel more connected to Israel.
When you do achieve milestones like finding an apartment or figuring out how to switch your bills over to your name when you move to a new place, or getting a job, or finding a community, you appreciate those things so much more than you would anywhere else because you know how hard you had to work to achieve that.
Now, amid the ongoing war, Belong says their mission is vital.
Of course, October 7th made a lot of difference. But it also, I think, made us understand how important it is, the mission that we've taken on ourselves. Because after October 7th, Jews around the world saw Israel a bit differently. And I think that many of them understood that they need Israel no less than Israel needs them.
Since October 7th, some 22,000 new immigrants have moved to Israel, according to the Jewish Agency.
Even if it's the war and the day-to-day I'm living my life, I feel much safer in Israel. I can be myself. I don't have to hide that I'm Jewish. I can wear the Magen David. In the street, I feel more safe.
These things shape your perspective, but they also give you an appreciation for what life is like here. And then you start to understand maybe why the people here are a little bit more aggressive, but at the same time super welcoming and super heartwarming.
Even with the new challenges over the past year, all the Olim interviewed say life in Israel is worth it.
There's nowhere else I would rather be, even though it's a challenging time right now.
I think Aliyah always comes with its challenges. It's always a journey, it never ends. From beginning to start, there's always obstacles and challenges, and also really great things along the way.
And now more resources to help immigrants come to Israel and stay in Israel.
The new generation of Olim are going to find out that it's a lot easier now to make Aliyah.
Reporting in Tel Aviv, Nicole Zedek for I-24 News. There's certainly always a reason to come to Israel, it seems. If that story didn't give you some Israeli pride, this next segment certainly will, because the Israeli Olympic team have just been jumping through hoops to make the podium. Literally. The women's rhythmic gymnastics team won silver for their performance today, making it the 7th medal won by Israel so far, which is the most Olympic medals in Israeli history. Well, for more on this historic win, I'm joined now by sports journalist Uri Levy, founder of Baba Gol. Uri, a very exciting day here in Israel after that rhythmic gymnastics performance. 7 medals now. Yes. So let's first talk about their performance, because we were watching it here at I-24 News, and they were incredibly talented, very in sync in what looked like a very complicated performance as well.
Yes, Nicole, another weekend and another historical Olympic benchmark for Israel. And I think it was quite a dramatic one. We all waited to see what grade the judge will give the Israeli team, the rhythmic gymnastic team that competed in the group all around criteria and grabbed the silver medal, an historical achievement and quite an inspiring and impressive one, I must say. It's a 7th medal for the Israeli delegation in Paris and the 20th all time, so obviously it's a national record. But what Shani Bakanov, Adar Friedman, Romy Paritsky, Ofir Shacham, and Diana Tvertsov did today in the gymnastic hall in Paris was absolutely fantastic. And I think one of the greatest moments of this Olympics for Israel, as we thought that maybe 6 medals is fair enough, it's historical achievement, it's our best Olympic, but no, there is more to come. And the gymnastic hall, and it was it was a Saturday that started with a marathon that was a little bit disappointing for us, because Maru Teferi and Geshau Ayale were supposed to finish the race a little bit higher than 26 and 31 as they did, but there the gymnastic team arrived and created this emotional and inspiring moment for the Israeli delegation and Israeli sports in general.
Came through with that victory right there. I remember, Uri, we spoke at the beginning of the Olympics, right when they kicked off, and I asked you about your predictions. You thought Israel could maybe win 5 medals. Now here we are at 7. So what were some of these surprises for you when we got these 2 extra medals?
Yeah, first of all, I think it's a proof for all of us that I must stick more to football than to speak about athletics and Olympics. No, I'm kidding. But yes, I think that, in a sense, this delegation, besides being the most successful Israeli delegation to the Olympic Games ever, is also proving us that despite the conditions here in Israel, despite the war, despite all the facts that, we are seeing here, mostly individual athletes, that many of them are funding from their own pocket their way to these moments, to these 30 seconds, to these 2 minutes on the platform, on the sea, on the judo hall or whatever. We need to appreciate them more in the gap between Olympics. We see these people only once every 4 years. It's important, and I think that the Ministry of Sports and the Ministry of Culture need to invest in these athletes more in the regular days and regular years between the Olympics. Israel is good in athletics, is good in judo, is good in sailing. It has a potential in gymnastics. Obviously, we've seen Artem Dogopiat with a silver, bunch of silver medals in all kinds of professions that must get much more credit in our daily life and daily culture in Israel. I think this is the biggest lesson here.
And so how can Israel then move forward with this momentum? Because as you said, the Olympics, unfortunately, they only happen every 4 years, at least the summer ones. So then going forward off of this historic win, what might we expect from some of these Olympians, or hopefully future Olympians as well?
Yeah, obviously, the next Olympic Games will take place in 4 years. So obviously, I think that invest more in the local competition, in the national competition, invest more in these athletes going to compete in the European competitions, in the continental competitions, in world championships. I think that the fact that if we'll expose more children in Israel to these exact sports, judo, gymnastics, sailing, all these kind of sports that might be, a little bit rare to find where to do. If the Ministry of Education with the Ministry of Sports will do something, maybe we'll get used to 7 medals in an Olympics. It will look nothing for us, you know.
Certainly hope so. And you also brought up a great point, Uri, that it wasn't easy for these Olympians to get here. They faced some death threats for even participating in the Games. Yet during the Games themselves, it really went out without any major incidences. So quickly, just tell us your thoughts on that, about overcoming that adversity for them.
Yeah, first of all, let's hope that the Olympic that is will be closed tomorrow will end this way that you just described, without any surprises. I think, yeah, give them even more credit, the fact that they faced threats, they faced a hostile environment at the beginning, but good words for the organizers, I think. And in general, Israel can hold his head high after these Olympics, and each one of these athletes are
thank you so much, Uri Levy. We're looking forward to those what's to come, and that's all we have for you on this.
bienvenidos a News 24, el magazine de análisis y noticias en español de i24 News. Yo soy Nicole Michel. Irán comenzó una guerra psicológica contra Israel. Irán lo sabe, fueron humillados en su propio corazón, donde está la seguridad de las guardias revolucionarias. Esta vez hay un elemento distinto a lo que sucedió el 14 de abril con el primer ataque de Irán a Israel de más de 300 cohetes. Aquí hay una humillación profunda gracias al éxito del Mossad, de esos agentes que colocaron y lograron poner una bomba en uno de los lugares más seguros de Teherán. Es muy significativo. Los iraníes necesitan ahora de alguna forma tranquilizar a su opinión pública con estos clips. Al mismo tiempo, los persas no quieren una guerra porque saben que sería una guerra contra Estados Unidos, más que nada contra los británicos, contra los franceses. Ellos están ahora en un dilema gigante. Todo puede ocurrir, pero en esta tensión psicológica ellos pueden mantener a Israel así otra semana u otras 2 semanas, como hicieron en abril, que tardaron casi 13 días en reaccionar. Sus proxies Hezbollah siguen los ataques constantes en el norte de Israel. Como decía el novelista estadounidense Henry Miller, cada guerra es una destrucción del espíritu humano. Podemos sumir al Líbano completamente en la oscuridad y desmontar el poder de Hezbollah en cuestión de días. Así lo dijo hace unas semanas el ex miembro del gabinete de guerra israelí Benny Gantz en una conferencia en la Universidad de Reichman de Herzliya. Para hablar de este conflicto entre Líbano e Israel tenemos hoy en los estudios de i24 News a Lior Lucas, veterano de guerra de Segunda Guerra del Líbano, sargento mayor de la unidad de francotiradores en el ejército israelí y creador de Mosquet Bitachon, plataforma en español especializada en terrorismo y conflictos en Medio Oriente. Wow, bienvenido Lucas a i24 News.
Muchas gracias por el espacio.
Muchas gracias a ti. Los desproporcionados ataques, Lior Lucas, de Hezbollah hacia el norte de Israel han sido desbordantes hasta el punto que no tan solo provocan una masiva oleada de desplazados, sino consecuencias inhumanas como lo que hace unas semanas, unos días, sucedió en Majal Shams, el asesinato a niños drusos que jugaban fútbol. Esto es una guerra que se puede ya abrir a gran escala.
Bueno, Israel, con las eliminaciones que hizo, por lo menos una de ellas, la que ha tomado, se ha acreditado de manera oficial, la segunda todavía queda en misterio, claro, pero todos culpan justamente a Israel. Creo que ha dejado un mensaje claro en el cual, por un lado, siempre advirtió de que hay líneas rojas, límites en los cuales tampoco Hezbollah va a poder pasar y tampoco Irán. Y por otro lado, dio también el mensaje de que puede responder sin tener que llegar justamente a una guerra abierta, pero lo que ha hecho, por un lado, eliminar al jefe del ala militar, que es Said Mahnen, es el nombre de él, el nombre, como se dice, de batalla de él, o Fuad Shukr, que es su nombre real, jefe del ala militar de Hezbollah en la Dahia de Beirut, y después, horas después, se escucha de la eliminación de Ismail Haniyeh dentro de un edificio gubernamental, de una residencia cuidada justamente en Teherán, en el norte de Teherán, por la Guardia Revolucionaria iraní, en medio de una visita presidencial que se hicieron varios mandatarios y líderes, por ejemplo, los líderes también de la Yihad Islámica Palestina, que fueron a visitar ese mismo lugar. De hecho,
la toma de posesión del nuevo presidente iraní.
Sí, cuando estamos hablando justamente de que Massoud, el nuevo presidente iraní, está celebrando una reunión justamente para celebrar su ascenso, llega Ismail Haniyeh, que no es la primera vez que estuvo en ese edificio, en esa residencia, y fue eliminado. Todavía es un misterio en el cual no se entiende si fue por un misil de corto alcance que llega exactamente a ese lugar, o si meses antes se puso un artefacto explosivo en su habitación, pero así todo sigue siendo una